UFC Fight Night Bautista versus Oliveira is this Saturday, and we're going to give you every single prediction from the bottom of the card all the way to the top in the main event between Bautista and Oliveira. And there are bangers on this card. There are going to be banger fights on this card. And I'm going to let you guys in on some very quick giveaway information. Every single card throughout the entire year for UFC, we will be doing a giveaway. Not only for the numbered events as we usually do, but every single card, and it will be done through maincardmma.com. Now, it's not just a website. There will be an app eventually, but right now it is only a website. As of right now, it's only a website, but it's very simple, and it's such a clean-looking website. $25 giveaway every single fight night. $50 giveaway for every single main card. Free to play, free to join, and all you have to do is make your predictions on the main card. You go ahead to maincardmma.com, make your predictions after you make an account, of course, and then you're going to go to leagues. You join my league using code MMADBM. Every single week, I will have a league on maincardmma.com. Simple name to look up, maincardmma.com, because you're only predicting the main card. You go use the invite ID, MMADBM, every single week. Copy it. I'll probably put a link in my link tree in my TikTok bio. But it's also a little short, a YouTube short I made, and a TikTok I made as well of the fight card predictions, where this is the longer version. I have a shorter version on TikTok and Shorts, where you could see, like I told you guys, the code is MMADBM. Just put that in, and you're automatically in the league. We posted like maybe 5 hours ago, 6 hours ago, and all of a sudden we have 36 members already on a website. So trust me, it's going to be big. $25 every single week, minimum $50 on numbered events. And all you have to do, once you're done with leagues, you go to predictions. If you're on your phone, it's like 3 bars in the top left corner. It's also pretty simple. And you can start making them in advance, I believe. Yeah, you literally can make your predictions in advance. But you go ahead and you make your predictions. I already have mine. And again, I'll talk about it in a moment. And then per prediction, they also have some stats here and there. But once you make your prediction, you will put the method. So I'll show you. I pick Mario Bautista by submission in round 3. Obviously, if it's by finish, you're going to put the round as well. And then, for whatever reason, my Google Chrome's a little bit weird, so the coloring ends up being weird on my Google Chrome. But you risk it. You get 1 per card. Double down. You get 2 points if you're correct. You lose a point if you're wrong on it. Only 1 per card. I did it on Mario Bautista because he is going to win, and we'll talk about that in a moment. You do it for all 3. You save your predictions, and then all of a sudden, you are now in my league with your predictions. You have a bunch of other stuff, standings, scores, etc. Very cool website overall. Working with them throughout the entire year to give you guys free-to-play UFC fantasy leagues where you guys have a chance to win money out of your boy's pocket every single week. $25 on fight nights, $50 on giveaway on numbered events. If you need help joining, DM me. But let's go over the predictions. Enough talking your guys' ears off on the giveaways. But you probably should want them because it's free to play. Literally just make an account, and there is not a single asterisk to it. No question marks about it. No raffle. No credit card information, debit card information you need to put in. It's literally just make an account. And when you win, screenshot that it's you. Send it to me on either TikTok or Discord or whatever it is. Any platform you want to DM me on. All my platforms are in my link tree, in my TikTok bio, and my Twitter bio, and my Insta bio. And you guys can just show me that it's you. You get the money sent to you immediately through whatever payment method you prefer. Here we go. Bautista versus Oliveira. And if you're international, it's fine. PayPal works too. Bautista versus Oliveira is the fight card. Some very cool fights on this card. It is in the UFC Apex, which we need to note because the UFC Apex is a smaller cage. Now, going into that, you'll definitely see a bunch of fights I'm going to be talking about where, like, okay, the smaller cage is going to be a very important one to kind of note. Klaudia Sygula versus Priscila Cachoeira starts off the card. Klaudia Sygula, 10 years younger. She's 27 years old. Priscila Cachoeira, 37 years old. Cachoeira is going to try to hit you with one big shot and try to win the fight off of that. She can't grapple to save her life. And Klaudia Sygula, very good volume overall, going to have the much higher output, much better cardio in this fight. Cachoeira, I think, is going to eat loads of shots. She's also not the bigger fighter in this octagon. On Tapology, both listed at 5'7". On the UFC website, Klaudia Sygula is listed as 5'8". Sometimes the UFC website does have a lot of incorrect information. Ironically enough, it is their company, and yeah, they botch it. But a lot of the measurements can be very weird from time to time on Tapology as well, so I don't know exactly what to trust. We'll see them face off eventually. I think Klaudia Sygula is going to outpoint Cachoeira big time in this fight. I think she's going to land proactively. I think the volume she landed in her most recent fight was ridiculous against Oleksiejczuk. And I think Priscila Cachoeira is very hittable as well, especially with the volume. Maybe Sygula will be a little bit concerned on being countered. But, I mean, it's a very similar stylistic fight as it was against Oleksiejczuk with a much less grappling threat coming her way. Like Oleksiejczuk does have a grappling threat of some sort. Cachoeira doesn't really shoot takedowns whatsoever and have any ability on the ground. I have Klaudia Sygula outpointing her big time by decision, maybe even a late finish, while gassing Cachoeira out, landing proactively on her. I think Klaudia Sygula is just a much better fighter overall. On to the next prelim, Jakub Wiklacz versus Muin Gafurov. If you don't know who Jakub Wiklacz is, he's the guy who Patchy Mix just recently fought and then end up, getting robbed against and now kicked out of the UFC, which kicked out, he wasn't renewed, he was released, whatever it is, all this stuff. Wiklacz didn't look good in that fight whatsoever. Now, it's Patchy Mix. Maybe you could say, okay, he kept up with Patchy. Yeah, no. Gafurov is a legitimate fighter. He is a very solid, well-rounded fighter all across the board. I think he's fantastic in terms of defensive jiu-jitsu, unless you have a ridiculous side Nurmagomedov guillotine that you can land on him, which I don't think Wiklacz is some, absurdly tricky style for Gafurov to deal with. And on the feet, I definitely favor Gafurov in the fight. Cardio-wise, I definitely favor Gafurov. Smaller cage is certainly a favorite for Gafurov because of the pace he can put on in this fight. He will wrestle at time to time, which I was a little bit concerned, kind of giving Wiklacz what he wants. Wiklacz doesn't have the wrestling to get into jiu-jitsu. Somehow this is his second fight in the UFC, and they still don't have his reach and leg reach. Fantastic development from the UFC website. They got some world-class people working on this stuff here. Anyways, multi-billion-dollar company, as Dana White says. Not billion-dollar company, multi-billion-dollar company. Gafurov's going to outclass him. I like the fight style of Gafurov, pressuring, pace, much better inside the pocket. I love the shots he's landed overall. Keep in mind, by the way, we're 10-3, 10-1 to start off the card, start off the year. 10-3 last card, 10-1 UFC 324. And then we are 9-0 on our top 5 predictions with the Bob Bayar fight versus Aaron Tal not happening last week. We had Bob Bayar, Aaron Tal missed weight. So basically we're 10-0, you know what I mean? Yeah, undefeated in our top 5 predictions. That video will be out on Wednesday. But this is our full fight card predictions. I think Gafurov wins by decision here as well. Couple of decisions to start off the card. Maybe a late finish by Sygula, but I think a couple of decisions to start off the card. Now, women's flyweight, a bottom of rankings fight between Cong Wang, number 12, and Eduarda Moura, number 13. Stylistically, it's a weird matchup. And I think stylistically in the smaller cage in the UFC Apex, and yes, it's significantly smaller, I think this favors Eduarda Moura a little bit more than it would in the wider cage where Cong Wang can actually use her movement a lot better overall with her takedown defense and defend a lot of the takedowns coming her way from Moura. Moura isn't used to fighting anybody typically her same size, so that's a little bit of a concern on this prediction that I'm going to have, but I'm going to have Moura in this fight. I think she's a pretty sizable underdog, and it's a little bit of a concern. I have no, obviously, care about that in the world. I just saw the odds, and it was a little bit weird. I think she's like a 2.5 or almost 3-1 underdog in this fight. Cong Wang is a tricky striker. She's a headache to deal with on the feet, and Eduarda Moura is very hittable and not really a good striker whatsoever, and unfortunately sometimes does fall in love with her hands for whatever reason and likes to strike for whatever, with no real success any single time she does do it, and she still falls in love with it from time to time. But the grappling difference in here is very substantial, especially with the offensive aspect of it, with Moura being the much better offensive grappler. Here, Cong Wang does have very solid takedown defense, but we don't really see her on her back too often, and I'm a little bit concerned trying to find her on her back in this fight. If Eduarda Moura takes her down, again, smaller cage. Cong Wang will be willing to be on the back foot. Moura typically is the aggressor in these fights when it comes to forward motion. You're going to have a lot of the times where Cong Wang does get backed up to the cage. Moura has a double leg, which is a very rare amenity in women's MMA. Really, I mean, without any disrespect to them, that is not something you typically see in women's mixed martial arts. A very high-level double leg. And I'm not saying she always does it. She does end up, going with some horrible, horrible entries with a lot of her takedowns. But a lot of the times, you could see a pretty good double leg or a chain single off of her sometimes. And if Wang isn't defending these takedowns and keeping her at distance in a small cage throughout 3 rounds or landing a big shot and hurting her, which again, very possible, I can't find it to be too much more difficult to take her down as it was to Denise Gomez. Denise Gomez gave Moura a tough fight. It was a split decision nonetheless. I think Moura's a good fighter. I think she's too big of an underdog in this fight. And I also think that stylistically, it's not a bad matchup for her in a small cage specifically. I think she's going to be able to get the space she wants minimized, and to be able to land a takedown here or there, get an entry here and there for a takedown, and then it's a 3-round fight. It's a takedown away from potentially icing the round. In women's MMA, they don't really do stand-ups. A lot of, especially in the Apex, did my lights just flicker? What just happened there? I'm cooked. Usually in men's MMA, you see a lot of stand-ups. In the Apex cage, you scarcely ever see stand-ups. It's usually when there's a crowd kind of roaring, and well, now with 4,000 to 5,000 people in the Apex, I think they're starting to push that towards. But Yeah, Eduarda Moura, I think, still is going to have some top time in this fight, and I think that top time is going to win her a lot of the minutes here. Top time in women's MMA is definitely judged differently than men's MMA. If you're on top in women's MMA for a long period of time, you are winning the fight. Even if the fighter is landing a little bit more damage on bottom, it doesn't really matter. Men's fights, they kind of take away that top time. They don't really care for it as much. They're starting to mitigate it. These fights are not scored evenly with men's and women's fights. If Eduarda Moura is on top for 3.5 minutes in the fight, even if a lot more damage is dealt by Cong, unless it was very, very substantial, they're going to score those top minutes for Eduarda Moura big time, especially in the Apex cage. And I think especially in the Apex cage, she can get it. As I've reiterated maybe 4 times now in this, and I'm kind of just repeating myself here. Eduarda Moura by decision in this fight, I believe. Moving on to upset Cong here. Javid Basharat versus Said Nurmagomedov. But a good fight. It's Javid Basharat versus Said Nurmagomedov. Another good fight in my opinion. But small cage, again, very substantial in this. Because Said Nurmagomedov likes keeping his distance. And he's always, and I mean always, on the back foot. Javid Basharat can move forward. But even with moving forward, sometimes doesn't necessarily always push the pace. He could be moving forward. And he is getting his octagon control. But he's also countering while moving forward. Which could be smart. And he is one of the smarter fighters in the UFC, but he got caught big time against Ricky Simon, and getting knocked out by Ricky Simon isn't really the greatest of attributes. Said Nurmagomedov could be a tricky striker, especially early, and can definitely hurt Basharat early on, especially coming off of that knockout. And he's very inactive. Basharat, I think, like 1.5 year layoffs in between his last 2 fights. The one before getting knocked out by Simon going into the Simon fight, and now another one going into this one. Like a 1.5 year layoff, something along that side, you know what I mean? He takes about a lot of time in between these fights, and it doesn't make any sense. I could double check real quick. Let me see if I can click on Javid Basharat here. Yeah, Javid Basharat's last couple fights. He fought February 22nd against Ricky Simon. So it's been almost a year since he's fought. And then here, again, another year since he's fought prior to that. So a year in between fights, only fighting once a year. He hasn't won in like 3 years. His last fight was against Mendoza. And it wasn't the greatest of wins overall. He didn't look like a world beater. He didn't look very dominant in that fight. I thought he clearly, obviously, separated, but I didn't think he was, like, substantial. He hasn't won in 3 years. He hasn't won since January 2023. We are in February of 2026. He hasn't been the most impressive fighter in the world either throughout it. He just seems very, very lackluster every single time. Like, he's a very disappointing fighter. You expect more out of him, and all of a sudden he's a minus 800 favorite losing to Ayman Zahabi. It's not the greatest of looks for him throughout. I do think he wins this fight, though. I think the grappling, I think the him and his brother fighting on the same card is going to help a little bit in terms of their camps being together and them being able to grapple and have a similar game plan in terms of their approach. And I think especially when we talk about Farid Basharat's game plan, we'll look at that as well as very similar because Javid Basharat will be moving forward. I think he'll be timing in his takedowns. Said Nurmagomedov very grappleable, susceptible to being taken down plenty. We saw it against the Bryce Mitchell fight and against some other losses he's had, even in the clinch. And he gets tired. Javid Basharat is a much better overall cardio tank in this fight. Kickboxing at range as well. Said likes to keep his kickboxing range and move on the back foot, and he gets pressured a lot. So it's already bad optics. In a smaller cage as well, it doesn't have much more to move around. A lot easier to cut off in the cage. But then again, we saw Javid Basharat pressuring Ayman Zahabi for basically the whole fight and ends up losing it. But Zahabi, I think, better takedown defense, better grappling defense overall than Said Nurmagomedov. Said has this nasty guillotine or front choke, like a ninja choke or a guillotine, where he can definitely land on Basharat. But I think Basharat's a lot smarter when he comes in for his takedowns, which, again, he rarely uses his grappling, which is weird. Fallen in love with the striking, which I don't necessarily understand too much. I'm going to go Javid Basharat by decision here, fighting a much smarter fight at a distance. I think it'll be a little bit harder to hit him. Not expecting as much of these inside entries from Said Nurmagomedov. I think Said is just going to get gassed a little bit in this fight, get taken down a bit. I think Javid actually wrestles a little bit earlier than we expect. And we go from there. Javid Basharat by decision here, getting himself his first win in 3 years. Ketlen Souza versus Bruna, Brazil. Bruna, Brazil is an okay fighter at best. Her wins are against Shauna Bannon and Molly McCann. Not necessarily the greatest of caliber of opponents. And then there's another one from like Road to the UFC, which I never understood that matchup. But nonetheless, I think Ketlen Souza is the better fighter on the inside to keep it short and sweet. Much better boxing on the inside. I think she actually landed a takedown for her own. She's fought the better level competition, fighting pretty close split decisions against Pierre Rodriguez and Angela Hill, in which I thought she won against both of them. Pierre Rodriguez, you could definitely argue. She lost that fight. I think Souza got screwed in that Angela Hill fight. Yeah, Bruna Brazil's length could definitely be an issue for her, but I think there are fighters that definitely use that length a lot better than Bruna Brazil, and I think Bruna Brazil's a little bit too hittable on the inside. Sure, she's a fighting nerd, but not the greatest of them. I think she's a little bit too hittable inside the pocket. I think Souza can land big there as well. I think the jiu-jitsu of Souza is definitely something she can use. Bruna Brazil, not the greatest of grapplers herself either, and I think Souza could take her down and go from there. Give me Ketlen Souza by decision. A lot of decisions. We are going to see a pretty dragged-out card, which, I mean, to be fair, I have the first 5 fights going to decision. The one good thing about that is that we have less ads. The one bad thing about that is that we have decisions, and it could be some pretty stationary fights and some low-volume fights. On the first Apex card of the night, I don't know why I said there were some very fun fights on this one. I thought there were. I'm pretty sure there are as I go closer to the main card, but I still have pretty sure plenty of decisions on the main card as well. We'll see. There's another Apex event that I thought was sick. This one has a couple sick fights on it. Maybe I'm... Look, Veretennikov should knock out Niko Price. I think that's one we can get. Niko Price just taking this fight literally on like 5 days notice, 6 days notice right now for no reason. To take a hit, get a paycheck, and get probably knocked out by Veretennikov. Veretennikov actually hurt Francisco Prado plentifully in that fight, and we're not going to be expecting Veretennikov to be like, you know, some world beater in the division. He's not really that great at MMA, but he's going to be hurting Niko Price in this fight. Niko Price is coming in on short notice. The guy really isn't UFC level. He's been taking a ridiculous amount of damage in his fights recently, and Veretennikov is the better fighter all around. Younger, more explosive, just more damaging. There isn't anything that I can give Niko Price. James Harden's being traded from the Clippers. For those NBA fans, that's ridiculous. It hasn't been officially announced, but they're trying to find a deal. Another team for James Harden. Come to the Knicks. Niko Price, yeah, knocked out by Nikolay Veretennikov. I'd be shocked, to be honest. I'd be very, very shocked to see if Niko Price survives in this fight. Veretennikov does get a little bit gassy. We saw in the Prado fight, but I think Price is way too hittable. And just the way Veretennikov looked in the Prado fight, I think it was a split. And I actually think I had Prado winning the fight, or it was like very, very close. Obviously, the Soriano fight wasn't the greatest of looks for him, but he did survive against a very big hitter in Soriano, and Soriano was grappling a good amount in that fight as well. Very good entries from him. But I'm pretty much favoring Veretennikov in this fight. There's no reason Niko Price should be coming in on that short notice and, you know, giving you that much trouble. I think it's pretty obvious that Niko Price is coming in here to take a quick paycheck and get hurt pretty badly in the UFC Apex, and Veretennikov walks out with a big win here. Daniil Donchenko, the Ultimate Fighter winner versus Alex Morono. Donchenko, I have winning this fight by knockout. I think Morono makes it a little bit more difficult early on, especially with the footwork. But again, you're putting him against a more explosive, much younger striker inside the octagon that is in the Apex, which is what he fought in not the Contender Series, the Ultimate Fighter Series for a good amount of time. And you also have Alex Morono, who's becoming much chinnier, becoming much more hittable, becoming a lot slower overall in his approach. And Daniil Donchenko is just a much better striker. It's going to be a striking fight. Morono's takedown entries aren't the greatest. I think Donchenko's takedown defense are going to be fantastic here. It's a pretty good overall takedown defense from Donchenko, and I think he's quick enough to avoid the entries of Morono here. Morono, not the greatest of wrestling entries in the world, and I think it's going to be a big loss for Morono here. If we take a look at Morono's recent fights as well, the Carlos Ayala fight, not the greatest it looks overall, being knocked out, hasn't fought in almost a year since then. Also lost to Daniel Rodriguez. Split decision, pretty weird performance for D-Rod, especially considering that Kevin Holland won. And Niko Price beat him. Niko Price beat Alex Morono recently. Isn't he on a 3-fight losing? No, he beat Court McGee in another fight where he almost lost, by the way. He actually almost lost to Court McGee. He's lost 4 of his last 5. He hasn't looked great as of recent. He has a nice guillotine, sure. Do I think he's going to catch Daniil Donchenko with it? Absolutely not. I think it's going to be a very big spot for the Ultimate Fighter winner to get a very big win in his own right and knock out Alex Morono, UFC vet. And they're going to be trying to push this guy. The guy's a very fun fighter from Ukraine. Explosive, entertaining to watch. He's an Ultimate Fighter guy, so they usually love to push those guys from the UFC feeder programs, essentially like the Dana White's Contender Series, like the Ultimate Fighter, road to the UFC, stuff like that. Daniil Donchenko by knockout against Alex Morono. Moving on to the main card, this could be a knockout. I am assuming it's going to be a decision more than likely. Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. Inside the small octagon is why I kind of not favor necessarily, but anticipate a potential knockout from Dustin Jacoby here. Jacoby is aging. Jacoby is fighting a bigger guy again, but Jacoby is the much better kickboxer at range. Julius Walker, I don't think, is really that good of a mixed martial artist whatsoever. I don't think he could really grapple much here against Jacoby. I think Jacoby defends his positions very well. I think Jacoby has the much better cardio. I think he's a much better distance striker, not to say the least between the two. I think he's going to hurt Julius Walker on the feet, and could be seeing a lot of clinches in this fight with all due respect, especially to the way Julius Walker likes to fight very often, although his cardio isn't necessarily the greatest either. I think we're going to see Dustin Jacoby land a lot of shots, separate in this fight, and should be winning this fight by knockout or decision. Shouldn't be too out of pocket for that one. Jean Matsumoto versus Farid Basharat. The other Basharat brother, probably the better one. and Farid fighting another pretty good prospect in John Matsumoto, but hasn't had the greatest of looks recently. The Miles Johns fight wasn't the greatest of looks. In my opinion, he actually lost the Miles Johns fight, which is a bad look for him. He really shouldn't be losing that fight, and he didn't look the greatest in it. I thought he lost it. A lot of people thought he won it. I thought Miles Johns won the fight. I actually had Matsumoto winning it in my predictions, and thought he lost. Rob Font coming in short notice, gets his first loss in the UFC, beat Brad Catone. He's been a very underwhelming prospect, to say the least. He had a submission over Dan Argueta, but Argueta isn't really the greatest of fighters, to say the least. I think Farid Basharat's a much smarter fighter, though. Of course, undefeated. He has some weird fights. Like, if you look at the Gutierrez fight, like, it was very close. He was, like, fighting as if he was guaranteed to win. It was weird. Victor Hugo fight got put in some weird positions against still the better fighter. The Lapalus fight, now Lapalus is a very tricky fighter, tricky striker to deal with, and very good takedown defense, and he still won that fight. Clayton Rodriguez, of course, he had the very, very clear gap in grappling, and he beat, I think, Blackshear on his debut. The guy's a good fighter. He's just, again, always very disappointing, the Basharat brothers are. Anytime you expect more, they end up giving you less, and they still somehow win for the most part. Unless it's Javid, he hasn't won in 3 years. But Farid especially. I think he's going to grapple in this fight. Is he really going to go into these big pocket exchanges against John Matsumoto? No, there's no reason to. Does Matsumoto throw some massive volume? No. Is he much higher volume than Basharat inside the pocket? Yes. I think the grappling exchanges will be fun, but I think Basharat is much better overall positionally. Matsumoto, I think, can definitely be taken down and put down on his back for a good amount of time. And I also think Basharat has much better cardio overall in the fight. At distance, I think he's the better striker as well. I think Matsumoto will be pushing forward a good amount. But sometimes Basharat does like to pressure a little bit. I think Farid Basharat wins another one by decision. I think I've had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 decisions here. Knockout here, knockout here. Decision, could be knockout, and then another decision here. That's rough. But we got another knockout coming into the Michal Oleksiejczuk versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Some very fun fights to end off the card, because Oleksiejczuk, I think, is going to knock out Barriault. The durability of Barriault starting to hinder, and the striking and the movement and the overall ability as a fighter of Michal Oleksiejczuk have completely developed to a very, very a much higher level than he was, at least, especially since he's come onto the Fighting Nerds camp, because the guy has become a much, much more aggressive pressure striker, as he always has been, but he's putting the shots together a little bit better, defending takedowns a little bit better. The grappling defense overall has been better for him. Barriault seems to be slowing, seems to be taking a lot more damage throughout these fights. His chin held on in the Shara fight, but I think Oleksiejczuk is much better overall at his pocket boxing, especially in this style matchup with, again, a small cage, him being able to use his pressure and Barriault not having much to move along. Barriault does accept the back foot very, very often in a fight where Oleksiejczuk is quite literally never going to leave him alone on this front foot. Left hand's going to be landing at free will. The beautiful body shot to deliver that Oleksiejczuk has could definitely be a big weapon here against Barriault. But I think it's going to be a lot of uppercuts over the top shots with his left hand. Left hand's going to end up knocking out Barriault, in my opinion, in this fight. Michal Oleksiejczuk, round 1 knockout against Marc-Andre Barriault. Rizvan Kania versus Jailton Almeida. This is a pretty interesting fight. This is a pretty interesting fight, especially Jailton taking this on short notice. He's doing the UFC a favor, knowing he got screwed in that last fight against Volkov in that decision. But he's the one that screwed himself more than anything, because the guy quite literally wet blanketed. That was the biggest wet blanket performance I have seen, at least to recent memory, because I can't figure another one where a guy tries to take a guy down at will as much as he possibly can to do no damage whatsoever on the mat and solely leave his head into the guy's chest without throwing any damage and lost the fight while controlling him from, I don't even know. I think it might have been 10 minutes or longer. I don't even know how long he was controlling him. Grappling advantage, of course, is Jailton Almeida. Go watch what he was doing to Curtis Blades in that fight before he got, obviously. I'll replay that moment over and over in my head repeatedly, where Jailton Almeida is just getting hit in the head repeatedly by Curtis Blades, not moving his head in an entry on a takedown, on like takedown number 10 maybe, on the fight or something, and just quits. He just keeps taking the damage and quits, instead of moving his head away into a different position. He's such a complacent grappler. It's so weird. He's such a complacent grappler. He gets exhausted. He's fighting at heavyweight. He's not cutting weight. He used to cut to 205, and he fights so complacent. But in the first round, if he gets you down, he gets on top. He's going to be throwing those donkey hammer fists on you when he's on top of you, and you're just going to be doing nothing about it. If he's not submitting you immediately in round 1 when he's on top, he's going to be hammering stuff in the mount. And in this smaller cage, again, very, very, very substantial asset to this fight. Is Kaniev going to be able to defend those takedowns repeatedly from Jailton? I'm not entirely sure. Do I think Kaniev has pretty good takedown defense? Sure. Do I think Kaniev might be starting 0-2 in the UFC after getting screwed by Curtis Blades in that decision? Yes, I thought he beat Curtis Blades in that fight. Think also to blame himself only. I mean, the guy ends up throwing a ridiculously low output later on in the fight where he was clearly landing at will on blades anytime he threw. Only himself to blame. But I think, was it Malhadinho? Is his name? I'm pretty sure. Jailton Almeida is his nickname. Do they give him it? Do they give me it if I click on here? Malhadinho, yep. I think he gets the takedown early. You know what he's going to do. Little front kick straight, or front kick or like a teep straight into a freaking single leg or double leg. I think he's going to get Kniev down immediately. The guy's grappling is ridiculous. He's one of the best at heavyweight, maybe for the first couple minutes. In general, he was literally ragdolling Curtis Blades all around the entire octagon. Yeah, he just couldn't get into a very, very dominant position to finish him overall. Didn't get the finish. Was still ragdolling him in round 2, and you end up horrible, horrible, horrible look. Anyways, Kniev isn't some Alexander Volkov difficult headache length to deal with to try to take him down. Kniev can definitely stuff some takedowns, can definitely hurt Jailton on the feet. If Jailton doesn't take him down immediately and early and, doesn't chain it, and Kniev can punish him every single time he doesn't, fine. He can definitely land some shots, and Almeida's pretty proven as a quitter, especially on short notice. Not entirely certain he's going to be too prepared to be taking even more damage like he ever is, and anyways, nonetheless, that he doesn't really, he quits when he takes some substantial damage, and Kniev does hit hard. I think we see a finish in this fight. I think we see a finish relatively early. I think we're going to see either Jailton Almeida finish him early on with some hammer fists on top, in a mount, or like some sort of submission, or Kniev punishing him for not taking him down. I'm taking Jailton Almeida. I'd be shocked if he can't get this grappling going, to be honest, especially really early in this very small apex cage, and Jailton Almeida will win by knockout in the first round. Could be submission. I'm choosing knockout. Amir Albazi versus Kyoji Horiguchi in the co-main event. Really wanted to kind of pick Amir Albazi in this fight, and the odds kind of, for those that actually do, indulge in that aspect, and you probably shouldn't. Very, very disgusting asset. Nonetheless, Amir Albazi versus Kyoji Horiguchi. Kyoji's quite literally better everywhere than Amir Albazi. I think inside the pocket, Amir may have a couple shots, but it nothing of substance. He's a little bit younger, sure, but he's pretty inactive overall. I mean, he's coming off of another injury when he was supposed to be fighting. I forgot even who he was supposed to be fighting here. He was canceled against someone. Fought Brandon Moreno back in November 2024. It's been almost a year and a half since he's fought. And he's coming into Kyoji Horiguchi, where Kyoji's been not only active, he only has 5 losses in a 40-fight pro MMA career. Fought the best of the best in quite literally every single promotion he's been in. He lost his Kai Kara-France fight. He got battered against Brandon Moreno. And, okay, he had a knockout against Alessandro Costa. He's fought, in the past 5 or so years, 3 times. The inactivity is not going to help him. He lost a lot of his youth in this fight game. How much is he developing with all the injuries he's getting as well? I mean, you can't really count on him too much, where he's not the better grappler in this fight. He probably has some decent grappling defense here, but I think Kyoji can actually take him down and get some good positioning on him. We watched it against Tagir. Tagir is susceptible much more, I think, than Amir. I think Amir can actually hold his own in the grappling a little bit more, but I think Kyoji's volume is better. I think the smaller cage also helps Kyoji with his explosiveness. He's much quicker overall than Amir, in my opinion. I do think it's a closer fight than the odds indicate. I think he's almost like a 3-1 underdog, which is a little bit crazy to me. But the inactivity, the injuries, really no substantial win. The Kai Kara-France fight, you can even argue he lost 4 of those rounds, and he somehow got a split decision win, which is insane. Then Kyoji Horiguchi gives him much more trouble than Kai Kara-France did even in that point. And I think that was a better version of Amir Albazi than we'll get in this fight. Give me Kyoji Horiguchi by decision in this fight, quite literally outpointing and outclassing Amir Albazi in this fight. The volume is going to be a big difference as well here. Mario Bautista versus Vinicius Oliveira as the main event of the evening. Skill for skill-wise, in terms of just a smart fighter, the cardio, the pace. I mean, Oliveira loves to put on a pace, but he doesn't have the cardio to follow it up. He says we're both going to get tired, but one of us is going to keep going, even when we're tired. He said some quote in the realm. I should have probably looked that up, because it was an aura farm moment from him. But Vinicius Oliveira is going to lose this fight. We watched Bernardo Sapai have ridiculous top time on him on short notice, and Sapai ends up gassing out later on. He's not really the greatest of cardio fighters, and neither is Oliveira. 5-rounder for Vinicius Oliveira, where if he doesn't hurt Mario Bautista and finish him early, good luck. How many times have you seen Mario Bautista just get knocked out in his UFC career? Let's go look at Mario Bautista. Throughout his UFC career so far, and let's see how many we can get through where he's been finished. where you have him getting submitted by Corey Sandhagen early on in his fight. Funny enough, I go into the first one. Whatever. It was a Corey Sandhagen. I believe it was an armbar, if I'm not wrong. I can't remember exactly. But since then, that was a fluke. Trevin Jones one was a fluke. Maybe he's susceptible to getting knocked out and getting hurt, whatever it is. But he literally, since then, has not been finished once in his career. He has his losses to Umar. Quite literally just Umar. Umar was his loss. He beat Patchy Mix. He beat Jose Aldo. Or Jose Aldo, depending on how it's pronounced. I can't remember, honestly. Ricky Simone, Damon Blackshear, Canetti, Lopez. I mean, the guy has been walking through a majority of the UFC. He was on a ridiculous win streak. He's the much better grappler in this fight. He's going to be able to get his grappling going. The pace he can set is also matching of Oliveira's early. I think he's probably going to start a little bit slow in this fight, let Oliveira get his gas out, try to land his jabs here and there, kind of like he did against Patchy Mix, and get a takedown early. He's going to try to get a takedown early. If finishes Oliveira doesn't have some ridiculous grappling ability off of his back. He has a guillotine here and there. They can try to throw a front choke in. His dexterity with his legs isn't going to make his guard too threatening, and Mario Bautista, I think, is a much better positional grappler on the mat. I think Mario Bautista could submit him early. He could break him late. This is a Mario Bautista fight. He should be the favorite. He is the favorite. Pretty sure he should be an even bigger favorite. The concern is, obviously, Oliveira has this ridiculous meme ability to walk you down and land stuff when he was ridiculously exhausted. We saw Kyler Phillips hurt him horribly. He is a very durable fighter, but I'm not really expecting Mario Bautista to be trying to chin him. You know what I mean? Mario Bautista is going to be working the pace, working the cardio, working the grappling, and he's going to wear on this guy and is going to be a Mario Bautista finish one way or another in this fight. If it's going to be ground and pound where Oliveira is defending these chokes repeatedly but exhausted and he can't really get himself out of a bad position, where Bautista ends up having his back, maybe in a back mount, flattens him out, or gets the mount and, starts landing some big shots, where Oliveira's going to have to either give up mount or give up his back or sit on the side and just get battered. Or Bautista gets his back, gets a choke out. That's essentially what I'm looking for in this fight, and that's exactly what's probably going to happen. I have Mario Bautista to submit Vinicius Oliveira in this fight, and we will see him win this main event. That is my double-digit prediction on my league. So make sure you join the league, maincardmma.com. MMA DBM is the invite ID. Every single week we'll have that, so if you don't even see my predictions video, keep that in your head. Main Card MMA. Let me go make my main card predictions on maincardmma.com. Oh, let me just go join MMA DBM's league in case I can get a $25 prize, or maybe $50 prize if it's a numbered event. Just literally on this whole basis of me making predictions and joining his league. There's not a single other asterisk to it. But that is it for my full fight card predictions for Bautista versus Oliveira UFC Fight Night at the UFC Apex. We'll see you guys then on Saturday, streaming live on TikTok and on YouTube for the full fight card as per usual. We will be doing that for every single fight card. Thank you guys all so much for watching. We are live every single day on TikTok and on YouTube. Not on TikTok and YouTube. On TikTok, we do UFC Cahoots on TikTok every single day. So make sure you guys join 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific Time, and 10 p.m. UK Time, all on my TikTok page. So I'll see you guys then for UFC Cahoots, some trivia. We'll do a good amount of them on this UFC Fight Night tomorrow, but I have a couple new ones tomorrow for us to actually enjoy and indulge in. I will be seeing you guys then. You all have a great day. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe and comment below. Follow the TikTok MMA_DBM. The best content you'll have on TikTok and on YouTube every single day, both live, short form, and long form. All three. The most consistent, the most active. We're going to be keep going. Whoa, whiffed on that, man. I had a good promo. Even though my voice is cooked. I had a good promo. We'll be, I flopped it. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys tomorrow in tomorrow's video. Peace out.